why posit such entity if it doesn't add on some necessary content, if it just explains the relevant data the same? It's just like parsimony, like given parsimony and basic principles of ontological economy, I would just say that that's something which is unnecessary to take. And I wouldn't, like, if the same way if me and you were to posit hypothesis, like I say, well, I got sick because I have COVID, and then you tell me, no, you're sick because you have COVID and you have STD. Like, if me and you are gonna both get to the same conclusion to why I'm sick, and you're just positing STD, obviously that one is just gonna be like not even simpler, nor is it gonna be more probable. So I really
also,
don't.
just substitute our views and show me how my view posits something additional to your view. Thanks.
Wait, sorry, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat it?
So, like, substitute the analogy you gave with our views and show me how my view posits something additional that's not necessary to explain the data.
Yeah, so me and you posit, under my view, doesn't matter whether I'm a realist or just like a cognitivist. I'm not a non-cog, basically. I posit propositions. You, on the other hand, posit propositions, but you also posit non-propositional utterances to explain the meanings of under your view, moral utterances. But it's just like the meaning of those moral utterances, you're not explaining the meaning of it better with the non-cognitivist view. Like, the meaning still stays the same, and just positing this unnecessary entity of non-propositional utterances, I just don't get the point. What does it explain better? It's just, it doesn't explain anything better. The meaning still stays the same. When you say something like "boo abortion" or "boo killing" or "yippee donating to the charity," those things mean something like, at least under your view, it would even under your view mean some proposition, like in like, you all should donate to charity, or all you all shouldn't kill. There's still going to be propositions even under your view. It's just like you have like a different view of what good means or moral means, but meaning stays the same. Like, there's no reason to add this. It's just going to be, not only is it going to be simpler, but even given the like some form of numerical simplicity, I just think it's going to be more probable, all thus equal. I don't see what you explain better.
So, like, I'm just gonna post what I got from what you said. You said I posit propositions. You posit both propositions and non-propositions. So, like, look, to respond to this quickly, I'm not actually sure what you mean. So, like, relevant to the view that's being discussed, we're talking about like cognitivism versus non-cognitivism. You're positing a factualist thesis about semantics, and I'm positing a non-factualist thesis about semantics. I.e., you're saying that these moral propositions express maybe beliefs about the world or about reality, and I'm saying that they don't express these things. So I'm not sure how I'm positing something additional. If you mean that I'm saying that moral sentences or moral utterances can express both propositions and imperatives, I mean that's just not a view that I've held to in the debate. All I've said really is that, like, it's possible that what someone might mean, like given some illocutionary act by moral utterance, is they're trying to describe the world. But that's also true under your view, right? Because it's possible under your view that what someone might mean when they say murder is wrong is let no one murder. I mean, I'm like one of these people that believe this. So.
So I posit. So you said something like, I posit, for example, with you. I posit, for example, that they are true. You don't posit to this. Whether I believe all propositions are true or false, be something which is going to be relevant to the context of the meaning of separate under my view, or what's going to be the meaning, like what's going to be behind these utterances, or in my view, propositions. So when you break down this utterance of this non-cog view, it's going to lead to some proposition. And if you're positing some utterances with the proposition, I don't see what's unclear to how it's like less. And there's like even a whole branch of a linguistical parsimony which also talks about this. So if you want, I can explain that one as well. But it's like, I think it's pretty clear what I'm trying to portray. Well, you're positing something which I don't. The only thing that you're saying I'm positing that they're true or false, but whether I believe all propositions are is something which is completely irrelevant to the current conversation.
So, like, maybe it's helpful to clarify my opinions on what meaning is. I just think meaning is what a speaker intends to convey by some unit of language. And that's also just what an illocutionary act is, right? So in speech act theory, an illocutionary act is what a speaker intends to convey by some word or phrase. And like an example of this might be if I say, let's say like me and Repellin are on a date, right? And I'm like, Repellin, it's 10 p.m., you know, right? You might think that like prima facie I'm describing a fact, right? Like it's 10 p.m. But it's also possible that I'm indicating to Repellin that we should leave, or that like I want to go, like I'm expressing a desire about wanting to go. And that's because, well, it being 10 p.m. might mean that like I'm impatient, I want to leave now, whatever, right? So what phrases expressed depend on the speaker. Now, I'm still not entirely clear how I'm positing something additional to you. It sounds as if what you're saying is when most people make moral utterances, they're expressing beliefs. What I'm saying is when most people make moral utterances, they're expressing imperatives or commands or whatever. And so, like, can you just be very clear to me on what I'm positing that's extra or additional to what you're positing?
Well, again, maybe to clarify it, because maybe that's why you're not understanding. For example, whether certain that doesn't have to be meaning, but when two people are discussing whether some action is good or bad, and there's like a proposition on the table, which is moral, right? Which, for example, you don't think it exists. If me and you both would to agree, one day, and somebody just lashes out and says, "Boo abortion," like the person who is like against abortion, they're expressing the attitude, but what does the attitude mean? The attitude they're going to be is like some form of command that I'm trying to give. Basically, don't abort because abortion is wrong. That is the attitude that I'm trying to convey, but that's already a proposition. So when you make a statement and when you're trying to express like these non-propositional, it seems like you're positing this like non-propositional language, like completely don't understand without the propositional meaning. Not only do you posit non-propositional utterances, but you also posit normal statements and normal propositions, while I only posit normal, and I just don't see the reason which like explains the relevant under positing these non-propositional utterances. Same thing. When you're done with that, I'm end of you. Do you take like, because you said something like objective field? Do you take the view that of like stance independent reasons? Do you think they exist?
I think you can have stance independent reasons, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's something I'll touch on later, but I don't want you to like have 30 points on your mind. Just like go.
Hold on, I'm typing to this any guy. Okay, look, to respond to a few things, I think maybe it is true that if you only posit propositions, that your theory is more parsimonious, but it's just at the expense of explanatory power, right? Because I think it's ridiculous to say that there are only propositions. There are no questions or interrogatives. There are no imperatives. There are just only propositions, Like that just seems ridiculous to me. When we're speaking in language, we ask questions. I wouldn't say that my questions are true or false. My questions are just me requesting someone, I suppose, to tell me something. When me wondering the truth about something, I'm not really making a true or false statement. I'm not representing the world in some way. When I make an imperative, like give me the water, I'm not saying that there is water on the desk. I'm not saying that my friend is going to give me water. I'm just saying that water there, bring it to me. And I'm giving you a command. I'm giving you an action to do it that I want you to do, or something along those lines. And so under your view, perhaps you have more parsimony or whatever, parsimonious, whatever you want to say, because of the fact that you eliminate non-propositions, but it's just at the expense, obviously, of explaining how language is used in everyday life. But I agree, if you deny that questions and imperatives exist and there are only propositions, then perhaps your view is more parsimonious.
Okay, well, there are some things I want to touch on there. So number one, I don't think all cases, not even all cases, I don't think even in this case that they're also going to have more explanatory power. I don't always think that that's so like even in the case that I brought up for like me and you both like analysis to why somebody is sick, and for example, we describe for them as like they're coughing, they their throat hurts, and then we say something like they feel weak, right? And then I say, well, he has COVID, and then I explain, okay, why COVID leads to this, and then you posit something like, well, he has COVID, and he has, I don't know, some other sickness like Moses, and you posit, and then you would these two still explain to how you get to this point, but both of them explain it the same way. Both me and you get to the same conclusion, right? So there's no reason to posit why he has mononucleosis with COVID if you're gonna explain the same way. The same way, like think about it like this. Let's just say, like during the 2020 quarantine, you're in an online class and you click the button to unmute yourself. Sorry, your microphone was unmuted. There are two hypotheses. One, you actually clicked on the mouse to unmute yourself, and two, demons from the underworld came specifically to your room and unmuted you, and your microphone was suddenly unmuted. Right? Even if you can explain to why demons would exist and why maybe there is an interpretation that they would come to your room, if me and you both explain perfectly and we both have reasons to why your microphone was unmuted, you're not even explaining anything better. You're just quite literally saying nothing. You're quite literally just positing more entities for no reason. So given that principle, right, if everything else is equal, meaning explanatory power is equal, but one is simpler, under some form of Bayesian theory of probability, if something is simpler given the principles of ontological economy, it's just going to be true that if everything else is equal, the one theory is just going to be more probable, right? And if you just apply it to this case, I don't know the hypothesis that non-cognitivism is true or that non-cognitivism explains some relevant data better. I don't see that being the case, right? And as far as it goes for like once I tell somebody to give me water, you're not positing like that water is on the desk or something. Well, you're not positing that water is on the desk, but you're positing that you're thirsty and you want your friend to give you water. Or in a sense, you're positing something like, give me water because I'm thirsty. That is still a proposition. And when you break it down, obviously there's going to be a proposition which is like a meaning for these non-propositional utterances, right? So I'm not saying that these imperatives don't exist. That's not the claim that I'm making. They do they can exist. I'm completely fine with that. But saying that we should take them into consideration when it comes to explaining the relevant data of moral meanings, that is something which I don't really agree with, and I don't see why I would agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, so like the first thing you said is when I say give me water, I might mean give me water because I'm thirsty, and that's a proposition. That's not a proposition. The sentence can't be true or false. Also, like the thing I'm positing here is like maybe it's possible, right, that someone might give a sentence that's in the imperative mood, um, and by that sentence, they want to express something propositionally. Um, so maybe if you say something like "stop talking," right, like what you're really trying to do there is like say to the person like I want you to stop talking or something, and that's like actually what you're trying to do by the utterance. But I can explain that by just saying that there are propositions and there are non-propositions. You can't explain what people mean when they say give me water, because it's possible that you want someone to give you water and you're not thirsty. And it's possible that when you say give me water, you're not trying to describe anything at all. I mean, when I give imperatives, I'm not trying to describe the world in any way. I'm not trying to describe my mental states. When I say give me water, I mean get me the water, bring me the water. I'm giving you like an imperative, I'm giving you a command. I'm telling you what to do. And I'm telling you to do this thing because I told you to. When I ask a question, I say, like, is the sky blue or gray today? I'm not trying to describe the world. I'm not trying to say, like, it is the case that the sky is blue or gray. I'm not even trying to describe my own mental states, right? It might be true that while I make this utterance, I have some mental state associated with a desire to know whether the sky is blue or gray. Perhaps that is true. But I'm not trying to describe such a mental state when I make the utterance. In actuality, what's going on there is I'm just saying to the individual, or I'm just wondering or expressing a wonder for whether the sky is blue or gray. I'm not describing anything. I'm not saying that the world is like anything. I'm just wondering or pondering about the truth of some proposition. Um, and I can explain these with ease, right? Because I'm taking this pretty standard position that there are also non-propositions. And I think, like, once again, you're taking this pretty ridiculous position that there are no non-propositions and that all imperatives and all interrogatives can just be reduced to propositions, which I think is like ridiculous, right? Like, obviously.
Well, I think I already explained how does like give me the water when somebody asks you, okay, what does that mean? And you say, well, I want the water, so I'm telling you to give me that water. And like when you break those things, when you break those commands that you're giving, obviously I explained like how that leads to a proposition. And just pausing these utterances doesn't explain anything. I think I already explained that, but maybe to begin with the sky's blue point, sky being blue and like moon existing and grass being green, those type of propositions, or sorry, those type of statements, right? they're they are describing something. That's why they're called descriptive facts. They're describing some true features about the world. Like saying that they don't describe anything, right? Then in that case, I don't know, like what is even like a proposition under that view if you don't think that they're, and like what are descriptive statements under your view if you don't think they're describing some like proposition. But even although whether I do think that those are propositions, I do believe that they are propositions. Just so we're perfectly clear, moon exists, sky is blue, and grass is green. They are propositions. They're just like descriptive ones, normative ones, such as like for example, you ought to believe moon exists. That is a proposition, just like not a descriptive one. So I think that clears up the confusion. One more thing, yeah. The reason now for I can give the view that I hold of like a more realist. If you're down for that, I can defend the view of realism, and I will defend to why I think there is a reason to why we should believe that some propositions are true or false. Whether that it stands dependently true or stands independently true, I can defend the view, but I will also explain to why I think there stands independently true to explain the view. But if you're down for that, I'll do it. If you are satisfied with what we've gone so far, we can maybe conclude. But yeah, that is practically
I
it.
mean, yeah, I think what I've said already probably addresses the stuff that you've been saying. I was paying too much attention, so if you did say something new and I don't respond, that's why. But look, I think all of the, you know, motivations, I suppose, for more realism, can also be explained by my prescriptivist view. Like if you ask lots of theists, right, for example, they might say, look, I'm a more realist, right, because God gives like objective commands, right? God is the source of objective truth and knowledge. So they'll give like a DCT view. And like you might believe that there are these prescriptions, these divine prescriptions that are created by God, that are once again mind independent and stance independent because their existence, I suppose, is outside of God's opinion or whatever. Perhaps you might say that they depend on God insofar as God created them, but whatever. And so you have these prescriptions or these laws, and like a lot of theists would say that they have motivations to follow these laws. And they would say that these laws exist, and so they have some sort of mind independent motivation and like arguably stance independent. I'm not going to make too strong of a claim there. Um, reason to act, right? Because there are these prescriptions. These prescriptions automatically just give individuals reasons to act if they assent to the prescriptions. If I assent to some command. Like if my friend tells me go to the store, right, and I assent to it, so I agree with it, I'll probably be motivated to go to the store. But yeah, I mean, we could probably talk about this afterwards. I don't really feel like there's a need for me to conclude. So
Yeah, I'll just say like one last thing. The view just like you described are like a theistic, like a theist, which is like also a realist. That's just like pure theory. Like I do these things because God, that obviously that one will, if we take that as imperative, obviously that can be compatible with like non-cognitive, agreeing with that. But I don't think that's the type of law. Like those are the type of virtues or rules or reasons to why you would follow that in like a theistic or like a religion, like a worldview of religion or like some religious domain. Don't think that that's the case, but that is something you have to dig way deeper. Um, I don't really feel like giving conclusion then if you're not gonna give one. So yeah, Jack, and I'm gonna talk to Rizwan. He also wanted to talk.